The Duke first noticed her because of the storm, because the sky seemed furious enough to tear the world apart that night. Rain hammered the courtyard stones like 1,000 tiny fists, and thunder roared in a way that made even the guards flinch. Adrian Westcott, the Duke of Ravensbury, rarely looked out the window at such an hour. He preferred silence, control, predictable order. But something compelled him. A strange pull, like an instinct waking up from years of sleep. And when he looked down into the storm, he saw her. A tiny figure soaked to the bone, clutching a torn satchel as if it were the last thing she had left in the world. The wind whipped her cloak around her like ragged wings, and for a moment she looked like a frightened child trying to hold herself against the fury of the night. That was the first thought that crossed his mind. A child. Lost. Alone. Fragile. But when she lifted her face toward the light spilling from the Duke's window, something inside him froze. There was fear there, yes, but there was also a fire. A kind of stubborn, quiet courage that didn't belong to a child at all. Still, the Duke descended the stairs with the same sense of responsibility he felt for every soul who sought shelter from the storms on his land. When the guards opened the iron gate, she flinched, not from the sound, but from the sight of him. As if she had expected someone cruel, someone who would send her back into the rain without mercy. "What is your name?" he asked gently, though his voice, deep and authoritative, carried like thunder itself. "Elara," she whispered. The name trembled off her lips, soft as raindrops falling. "Elara Wynne." She hugged her satchel tighter, and he noticed her knuckles turning white from the pressure. She was young enough to be nervous in front of him, but old enough for her eyes to carry stories no one her age should have lived through. "Come inside," he said simply. "You're freezing." For a moment she hesitated. As if stepping inside the castle might cost her something important, something personal. But the cold was merciless. Finally she nodded. Inside the grand hall, firelight danced in golden waves, painting warmth onto stone walls carved with decades of history. Servants paused to stare, not rudely, but with curiosity. They had never seen a girl like her. She didn't walk timidly, like a poor villager seeking charity. She didn't look around greedily, like someone tasting wealth for the first time. She walked as if she'd been inside grand halls before, but had been forced out of them long ago. The Duke watched her closely. She was shivering, but she refused to ask for help. Refused to show weakness. She reminded him of a stray fox, frightened, cautious, but ready to bite if cornered. "Sit by the fire," he said. "Warm yourself." She obeyed, settling onto the rug near the hearth. Flames reflected in her eyes, making them look like embers struggling to stay lit. That's when he realized. She wasn't a child. She was surviving. He approached slowly, not wanting to startle her. "How long were you out in the storm?" She shrugged one shoulder. "Long enough." Her voice was steady. Too steady. People who had known real pain often sounded like that, balanced on the edge between vulnerability and numbness. "Where were you headed?" "Anywhere." The word sliced through the Duke like cold steel. He'd heard that word from soldiers who'd lost their homes, from widows who'd buried their families, from children who'd chosen silence over crying. Anywhere meant nowhere felt safe. Nowhere felt like home. He took a slow breath. "You may stay here for the night. We'll speak in the morning." She nodded without lifting her gaze. But he could tell she wasn't comfortable accepting kindness. Not yet. She had the look of someone who had been betrayed too many times to believe in generosity. Adrian turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. Something made him look back. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was fate. Elara had pulled her satchel onto her lap and opened it. Inside, barely visible from the distance, were a few worn books, a cracked mirror, and a small wooden box she held with unmistakable reverence. She touched it gently, almost fearfully, as if it contained her entire past, or everything she had left. She caught him watching and quickly snapped the satchel shut, her eyes widening as though she expected him to take it from her. He raised a hand reassuringly. "Whatever you carry is yours. No one here will touch your belongings." The relief in her posture was so subtle he barely noticed it. But it was there. And it struck him deeper than he expected. As he left the hall, he felt a strange heaviness pressing against his chest. Something about her stayed with him, her eyes, her silence, the way she guarded her heart with invisible armor. That night, he lay awake longer than usual, listening to the sound of rain battering the windows. He told himself she would leave in the morning. People like her never stayed long. They were like storms, unexpected, powerful, and destined to pass. But when the sun rose and he stepped out of his chamber, he found her in the stables, barefoot on the cold ground, her hands brushing the horses as if greeting old friends. "You're up early," he said. She turned, startled, brushing hair from her face. "I couldn't sleep." Her voice was soft, but her smile, small and fleeting, hit him unexpectedly. Like a ray of light cutting through the fog that had held his life for years. He should have said something logical. Something distant. But for once, logic didn't come. Instead, he asked, "Do you like horses?" "They're honest," she replied simply. "They don't pretend." He felt the truth in her words hit him harder than any storm. Days passed, and Elara stayed, not because he ordered her to, but because she moved through the castle with a quiet, unspoken grace that stitched itself into the walls. She helped the cook without being asked. She laughed with the stable boy. She collected wild flowers and placed them on window sills. She brought something the Duke's life had forgotten long ago. Warmth. And he found himself watching her more than he should. Wondering about the stories behind her sad smiles. The scars beneath her silence. The reason she flinched at kindness but fought for others without hesitation. He told himself she would leave soon. But one morning, a letter arrived, wax-sealed, urgent. She read it. Her face strained of color. And before the Duke could ask anything, she was packing her things. No goodbye. No explanation. No hesitation. She walked toward the gate as if she had been waiting for this day. That's when he felt it, like a fist closing around his heart. He wasn't ready to lose her. He wasn't sure he could. And for the first time in his life, the Duke ran after someone. "Elara!" His voice shattered the quiet morning like a blade striking stone. It wasn't just loud, it was desperate. A kind of desperation she had never heard from him before. It made her freeze mid-step, her fingers tightening around the worn straps of her satchel as if it were the only thing keeping her standing. Slowly, painfully, she turned. The Duke, always composed, always controlled, was running toward her. His breath was uneven, his hair damp from the mist, his eyes filled with something raw enough to stop her heartbeat. "Your Grace?" she whispered, her voice trembling with all the words she had swallowed through the night. "You shouldn't be out here." But he didn't stop walking until he stood right in front of her, close enough that she could see the panic flickering behind his usually calm gaze. "Elara," he breathed. "Where are you going?" She didn't answer immediately. For a long moment, she just stared at the ground, watching her own tears darken the dirt beneath her feet. She knew this moment would hurt. She had prepared herself for it, not because she wanted to leave, but because she believed she had no right to stay. "I have to go," she whispered. "Why?" His voice cracked in a way that made her close her eyes tightly. "Tell me." She opened her mouth, but the words tangled in her throat like broken threads. Finally, she forced them out. "Because you don't need me." The silence that followed was heavy enough to break a person. He blinked, stunned. "What are you talking about?" Elara inhaled shakily, her breath hitching against the weight of truths she never wanted to speak aloud. "You took me in because you felt sorry for me. Because I looked small and lost and pathetic in the rain. You gave me a room, food, safety, but none of it was meant to last." She forced a smile, but it wavered like a candle in the wind. "You're a duke. A nobleman. You belong to a world where people like me don't stay. And if I stay..." Her voice broke completely. "If I stay, I'll want things I can't have." He stepped closer, his chest rising and falling with every breath he struggled to take. "And what is it you want, Elara?" She shook her head. "I'm not supposed to want you." Her voice was barely audible. "People like me aren't supposed to fall in love with people like you." His eyes widened, not with shock, but with something that nearly pulled her back into his arms right then and there. "Elara." "No." she said quickly, stepping back before his voice could undo her. Don't say anything kind. Please. I won't survive it. A gust of wind swept through the courtyard, tossing her hair and carrying away the last bit of her resolve. Still, she kept walking. One step. Then another. But before she could take the third, he grabbed her wrist, not harshly, but firmly, like a man holding on to the last thread of something precious. Elara, look at me! She did. And in that moment, the world seemed to exhale. The Duke wasn't a man known for emotional expression. People said he had a heart carved from iron and winter. But the way he looked at her now, it was like watching ice melt under the warmth of a sun it had feared. You think I pity you? He asked softly. Is that truly what you believe? She swallowed. Why else would you keep someone like me here? A bitter laugh escaped him. Someone like you? He stepped closer until every breath she took brushed against his chest. Elara, you are the only real thing that has touched my life in years. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. You think I saved you that night? He whispered. You have no idea how wrong you are. His thumb brushed across the inside of her wrist, gentle, trembling. I was drowning long before you walked into my home. Her heart stuttered. Don't. I thought you were a child when I first saw you, he said, voice breaking. Because I had forgotten what hope looked like. But when you lifted your face, his gaze softened. I realized I had forgotten what living looked like too. Elara felt something inside her collapse. All the walls she had built, all the fears she had clung to, they began to crumble under the truth in his voice. You filled this place with warmth, he continued. With life. With laughter. Do you know the first time I smiled in months? His hand moved to her cheek, barely touching. The morning you sang to the horses. Her breath came out in a shaky gasp. I didn't take you in out of pity, Elara. I kept you close because He stopped, swallowing hard, searching for words he had never used before. Because I wanted you to stay. Her tears spilled then, silent, soft, endless. Adrian, she whispered, using his name for the first time. It hit him like a confession. Elara, he whispered back, his voice colored with something too tender for titles. If you leave now, I won't. He paused, as though the admission hurt. I won't know how to breathe without you. A small sob escaped her. Not out of fear, but out of relief. Out of the sudden, overwhelming realization that the thing she had desperately wanted but never dared hope for, was standing right in front of her. He gently lifted her chin. Tell me you don't feel anything for me, and I'll let you go. Her eyes widened. I can't. Then don't go. I'm afraid, she whispered. So am I, he said softly. Losing you terrifies me more than anything I have ever faced. The satchel slipped from her fingers and fell to the ground with a soft thud. The Duke didn't look at it. He only looked at her. And she stepped forward, collapsing into his arms with all the emotion she had been carrying alone. He held her like she was something delicate, something rare, something he never planned to let slip away again. His voice pressed against her hair. Stay with me, Elara. Not as a guest, not as someone I rescued, but as someone I can't imagine my life without. She pulled back just enough to see his face. Are you sure? He laughed softly, breathlessly. I've never been more certain of anything. Her hands cupped his cheeks, trembling. Then I won't leave. He exhaled the breath he'd been holding since the moment he saw her walking away. Slowly, tenderly, he pressed his forehead to hers. And in that quiet moment, as morning light spilled across the courtyard and the world seemed to pause, they both realized something neither had expected. They had found home. Not in the castle. Not in the land. But in each other.